What's going on, guys? I'm Mini Pride, and Warhammer 2 just got a massive overhaul to campaign gameplay. Probably the biggest set of changes we've seen since launch day. It's called the Proving Grounds Beta, and I had the opportunity to play some of it over the weekend and get a feel for the impact it has on both Vortex and Mortal Empires. And I'll say right now, things are already feeling very different. Now, one of the main problems grand strategy games face is the concept of snowballing, where capturing cities begets resources, resources beget armies, armies lead to conquest, and the player reaches a point where nothing the AI will ever do could ever stop you or your flourishing empire. This issue isn't unique to Total War, but it has been the driving factor for many of the series' most subpar mechanics, like Civil War in pre-Emperor Edition Rome 2, or Realm Divide in Shogun 2, where something, anything, was thrown at the player en masse to provide some semblance of a challenge come mid to late game, even if it was completely illogical, gamey, and artificial, which those mechanics most certainly were. Now, over the last 12 months or so, there hasn't been a lot in the way of true campaign balancing, because in a game this massive, with this much content getting added, it doesn't take much to throw everything out of whack. It's the butterfly effect. One minor change can have gigantic unintended consequences that lead to bad experiences, and we've already seen this a bunch. The Vampire Tide sweeping the map with the Zombie Pirates DLC, we've seen a hobo Vlad and the Wandering Lizardmen right-click on a random settlement all the way across the world, spending the rest of their misbegotten lives lost in a drunken stupor of pointless attrition. And most recently, we've seen the resurgence of the Order Tide, the shield of civilization, with the Empire, Dwarfs, and High Elves enslaving all lesser races and giving Archaon and Grimgor swirlies in the school bathroom. It was high time for a balanced sweep. A full one. So the logical solution was to build a separate campaign where Creative Assembly can throw spaghetti code at the wall until something actually sticks. Gather feedback, gather intel, and figure out what works, what doesn't, and try to address the core issues of Warhammer 2. So, just to be clear, this is all on a separate build. It's an opt-in beta. It's not in the main game yet. Instructions are in the blog post in the pinned comment if you want to join up. Now, probably the biggest change is that supply lines are gone, period, which should make everyone happy. It was a really artificial mechanic that had a pretty detrimental effect on races like the Vampire Counts and Skaven, factions who should be encouraged to drown the field in a tide of bodies, but weren't really able to do it with chaff because recruiting additional armies would make upkeep go up faction-wide, which in turn meant that players would always lean towards doom stacking with the most powerful units available, because it's the most efficient strategy in the main game. Really made you miss out on a lot of the flavor that swarms of zombies or Skaven meat shields could offer. Mess with the asymmetry that's really at the core of what Warhammer Fantasy is all about. So now, when you recruit a third or fourth or fifth army, there won't be a supply lines upkeep penalty at all, meaning you can create half stacks or quarter stacks of troops to garrison your home provinces, and should have the side effect, a pretty good one at that, of adding more variety to the battles, where it won't always be 20 versus 20 or 40 versus 40, which a lot of people have been asking for a very long time. It'll be nice to have some of those smaller scale battles with 5 or 6 units on each side. But on the flip side of this is a complete and total economic overhaul, which is really at the core of this update, because everything just costs more now. Construction cost, recruitment, buildings not automatically converting to your culture anymore. Everything is designed now to be a money sink and force you to make some tough decisions. And the functional effect this has is that your snowball is a can getting kicked down the road. It will still come. You will still snowball out of control eventually. There will still be a moment when you reach critical mass and nothing the game can throw at you can hope to stop you, but it will be delayed. And a larger portion of the early to mid game will be spent making more difficult decisions. For example, recruitment cost has always been easily ignorable. 40 to 50 turns in, the initial cost for a Blood Knight or Necrofest Colossus wasn't really a factor. By that point, your economy should be churning, and getting the powerful elites would mark the beginning of player dominance. When you get full stacks of those, the AI just can't hope to stop you. Upkeep was always the limiting factor here, though. The income spent every turn keeping them in your armies was the most expensive part, and that was your limiting factor. But now, that initial cost is doubled. So 350 dark magic skeletons now cost 700 dark magic. Blood Knights at 1700, now 3400 to recruit, which means doom stacking is gonna be a lot more challenging now. The single entity spams of Carnosaurs and Stegodons and all that, gonna be a lot harder to pull off. You can Still get military that can protect your borders, but you're going to want to go wider as opposed to just get 2 or 3 crazy stacks of dinos and that's it. And this is true of building chains as well. Growth is slowed down, and growth, public order, and main settlement buildings are a lot more expensive overall. Castle Drakenhof, for example, is 10,000 dark magic to upgrade to tier 4 now. So the idea here is to push elite units and the ability to doomstack later into the campaign by making recruitment cost and city upgrades substantially more expensive at higher difficulties, which is good and bad. On the one hand, it's good because it helps prevent the snowball issue, provides a challenge for longer, and prevents the player from steamrolling the AI right from the word go. But on the other hand, one of my issues with previous Total War games was that the cool units took forever to unlock. It's actually been an issue in 3 Kingdoms and Shogun 2 that getting the elites takes way too long. When you finally do unlock them, they're not even worth it because they're way too expensive and max chevron peasants are just more cost efficient, right? There's nothing worse than investing a ton of time and money into getting these badass Naginata warrior monks only to find out that you can only afford like 4 of them for the price of a horde of 9 chevron veteran Ashigaru and Spearwall, and wondering why you even bothered in the first place. And sometimes people get bored of their playthroughs before they even get to the late game tech or units. I personally never used matchlocks in Shogun 2 campaign because by the time I had the samurai versions of them unlocked, I'd already won. I'd already conquered all of Japan. What's the point? You can't gate them that late in and expect people to use them a lot. So there's a balancing act there that needs to be addressed. You want to make elites feel interesting and unique and somewhat rare, but not so rare and so gated behind tech and cost and time that people never use them. And that is especially true in Warhammer, because the elites are what make it special. But that's where the new difficulties come in, because instead of easy or normal now, you're selecting the speed at which you can complete a playthrough, build up your provinces, and recruit better units. And it's only at the standard, veteran, and legendary difficulties now where you'll get the increased construction costs and recruitment. If you select the lower difficulties, you'll get to go through a much more speedy playthrough. If you pick fast, that's the kind of playstyle you'll get. And the AI will mirror that as well, at least in terms of their economy. Now, what I don't know is, and I've been trying to get an answer from the devs on this, is what kind of impact these new difficulties will have on the AI. Because if you play on very hard or legendary in the base game, the AI gets more aggressive, right? They dow you all the time, hippity-hoppity trespass on your property, and gobble up any territory they can get their hands on. I don't know if you can play on the new fast difficulty and play against aggressive AI on the campaign map at the same time. My feeling is that all these new difficulties will mirror those of the old. So fast will be the new normal, and that means the AI will play like normal AI. But my hope is that this is Creative Assembly working on giving players more control on customizing their campaigns. We've talked about it for a while. Adding more options like sliders that let me play a fast campaign without the recruitment or construction penalties, but against legendary dickhead AI that gets all those same benefits. So being able to customize my playthrough at the start menu and give myself some options in how I want to play through. Because yeah, fast is the option to pick if you want to get to those elites quickly and build up your provinces really fast. And if I don't want to grind through 200 turns of Mortal Empires, but if it means that AI is going to sit on their ass and be extremely passive and play like normal AI, then that's boring and it's an option I don't think a lot of players are ever going to use. But building choices are going to matter a lot more in the first 50 turns now. One of the biggest critiques the campaign gameplay for Warhammer 2 has faced since launch, and rightly so, is that there isn't much thought or planning that needs to be invested in settlements. Stabilize public order and build growth first. If you need money, build the money building. Make walls everywhere, and as soon as you capture some nice cities, you're swimming in the dough. But when you're talking 10,000 gold upfront investments just to get a city leveled, or 6,000 gold just to get the 3rd level of a growth building, you can't afford to put walls in every settlement, which in turn synergizes with the upkeep reductions and means you need more armies, which means more battles, less 20 stack versus 20 stack, better variety, and more strategy overall, as troop movements are the things that are dictating the defense of your territory, not unassailable garrisons that you can go AFK and then just hit auto-resolve and you win those games. It means you need to put a lot more thought into what you build and where you put your armies, and that was a juicy win to death. God damn, I love that spell. It looks like a lot of these changes are going to have the intended effect of lowering the emphasis on doom stacking and getting more use out of the rank and file troops for each and every faction. When you're playing Skaven or vampire counts, that's what you want. Skaven are not Skaven when they don't have hordes of slaves in the front ranks. Vampire counts are not vampire counts when they don't have a bunch of zombies and skelly boys. Now, there are some other changes coming as well, like the Dwarfs, Empire, and High Elves AI, the main conspirators of the oppressive Order Tide, now placing a much heavier emphasis on their own home territory. So their snowball should be limited more and allow for the evil factions to actually put up a fight. But I'm a little bit worried that there might be some unforeseen consequences taking place there. Like in my current Vlad campaign, I'm on about turn 55, turn 60. Ungrim Ironfist has been jerking his dick in Carrot Kadrin for 40 plus turns. Hasn't moved a muscle. And Alaric Get Gold of Zhufbar is continuing his long tradition of corruption fetish, cackling as his poor Zhufbar dwarfs lose models, just aimlessly walking to and fro through Schwarzhofen. And that's been a problem since Warhammer 1, I think. I don't know what the deal is with that dude, but Alaric Get Gold has a weird vampire fetish, and I can't figure out what the deal is there. I'm definitely hoping the script doesn't just entirely flip again, with Order factions just camping in their home provinces doing nothing and waiting to get gobbled up by the Green Tide or the vampires, but only time will tell on that front. And oh yeah, vampires are now supposed to be fixed. Although I've not seen it in action because I'm actually doing a Vampire Counts campaign, but apparently AI Hobo Vlad is no longer a thing, so we won't see his time-ravaged ass just scooting himself over to Nagaron to die in exile, which is good. Now, it's important to remember not all the changes made on the Proving Grounds beta will make it into the live game. It's a blank canvas where CA can throw some wacky ideas and see what the outcome is, but most of what I've heard so far sounds pretty good to me, honestly. I think it's worth trying. And remember that feedback is the crux of this entire idea. It's the axis upon which everything spins. People need to take part and give CA their feedback in droves so they have a decent sample size to work with and draw conclusions from. Overall, I think this is a fantastic idea on paper to get people engaged and might have a really positive effect on the future of this trilogy, a place where CA can just go and fine-tune balance and try some crazy stuff that really furthers the asymmetry that makes Warhammer special. On the other hand, I can also see it kind of losing support from CA pretty quickly, kind of dying off, or it doesn't really end up making a whole lot of difference one way or the other. So if we want to prevent that from happening, we gotta take part. So download the beta, play some campaigns, make note of the good and bad stuff that happens in your playthrough, so you can pass that info on to the devs at Horsham HQ, and that's the only way we can make sure that this does not go the way of the dodo. So, full patch notes are in the blog post. Let me know what you guys think of the changes overall, and I'll see you all in the next video. Indie Pride, signing out for now. Have a good one, guys.